was powerful, but I didn't realize how powerful. The difference will blow you away. Today we're gonna be going over the Aputure LightStorm 300D Mark II. I just bought this light, so I thought I would take some time to go over the benefits, the features of this light, and see how it compares to the Aputure 120D Mark I that I've been shooting with for the past few years. The 300D Mark II is significantly more powerful than the 120D, especially the Mark I. Now the Mark II 120D is gonna give you a little bit more power, but the 300D is incredibly powerful, especially when you compare these lights side by side. Power is going to be the primary selling point of the 300D, but I wanted to make sure I tested it for color accuracy as well. The 300D Mark II also feels a lot better built. It's sturdier, it's heavier, there's more metal parts. It just feels industrial and professional, where the 120D feels kind of prosumer in comparison. The ballast boxes are probably the most different. The 120D ballast has always felt a little cheap, a little flimsy. Often it'll buzz or hiss, or it just feels a little lower quality. While the 300D Mark II is heavy duty. This thing feels very industrial, feels very solid, and it's quite heavy and quite a bit larger. This is probably the biggest difference if you're coming from a 120D Mark I to a 300D Mark II, is you're gonna notice the difference right away in just how hefty this ballast is. Not only is the ballast better built, but it also has built-in effects like paparazzi, lightning, explosions, fireworks, bad TV. There are so many pre-programmed effects that take advantage of the LED technology built right in. So it's a lot more versatile than something like the 120D Mark I that just really is on or off and then intensity of the light. This faulty bulb. This is TV. Just pulsing. Strobe. Oh my goodness, that's awful. Oh my. Oh. That's really good. This is explosion. The 300D is incredibly powerful, but if you want even more focused power, you can go with a Fresnel attachment to the front of the light. These are only like $100, and they really do increase the intensity of the light. Now granted, they narrow the beam, so they're focusing all that light into one point, but if you really need a lot of horsepower, especially to throw the light further, get a Fresnel attachment. They're not that expensive, and they work remarkably well. One of the most important things I wanted to test was the actual real-life power difference between a 300D Mark II and a 120D. Now on paper, they say they're different, but if you already have a 120D or maybe you have a few of them, how many would you actually need to match the power of a 300D Mark II? Let's find out. So to match the power of the 300D Mark II, we're gonna test how many 100D Mark Is we would need to get there. That's one 100D Mark I. It's 2, now 3, now 4, 5, not even 5, you need 6 to actually get to one 300D Mark II. 7,450. Now it may not matter to you as much, but these lights do come with some nice cases. The 300D Mark II case is a lot nicer, it's a lot sturdier, it's a little bigger, but it just has that hefty feel, while the 120D Mark I case, it's a little bit flimsier, more like a duffel bag material, where the 300D, it's still not a hard case, but the Mark II one, it is kind of nice to have something a little bit more sturdy and feels like it's gonna protect the light a little bit better. If you're looking for an alternate option, I found this on Amazon, and this light is interesting because it's an RGB LED, meaning not only can you change the color temperature of the light, but you can also change the hue and saturation. So you get a lot of color options out of it. It is the cheapest of the three lights at only $400, but it's also the largest, and the lighting intensity is less than even a 120D Mark I. So if you're not looking for intensity, but you want color options, you could give something like this a shot if you want that kind of creative variety that's afforded by changing the color of a light rather than looking for pure intensity alone. When you compare these lights side by side, it's really impressive to see how far the technology has come. The 120D Mark I was a game changer at the time, and it's still a decent light, but when you look at the 300D Mark II, there's so much value here. The 120D Mark I still sell for $500, maybe a little cheaper used, but the 300D is only about twice as much. So for twice the price, you get 6 times the light in a package that's only about 50% larger. So if you think you're gonna save some money by going the old school route and opting for something used or a little bit more dated, I would say don't do that. If you're going to go for the 120D, go for the Mark II at least, but really consider spending the extra money on the 300D Mark II because it really is worth it. You'd have to get 6 of these to equal 1 of these, and that just doesn't make financial sense. Overall, I would highly recommend the 300D Mark II. I can't stress it enough. There is so much value here when you look at the price to performance ratio. There really isn't much else that's gonna give you this much bang for your buck. It is a little bit expensive, but don't let that scare you away. You can do so much with this light. It's so incredibly powerful. It's a really good quality light, and as long as it holds up over the long run, which based on the build quality, I feel like it's going to, I really don't see anything wrong with this light if you can afford it at the time. And really, you should be investing money into your lighting kit. Highly recommend it. Get a good camera, get good audio, but also get some good high quality lights.